Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we got another Gun Gripe episode for you. Normally I have Chad as a co-host, but in this situation we're bringing in John from the Gun Collective.
Hey guys.
You guys know that he is well known for commenting on various subjects in his news program that he puts on. Excellent channel. You should go over there and check him out. Great guy. So we're going to have him on as a guest today, and we're going to be talking about the topic of fear buying, but not really fear buying as we know it, just when it occurs after a tragedy or something like that, but this kind of senseless based fear buying that usually happens like around election time. I mean, This is a very important election that's going on right now. I mean, there's a lot of folks that think that the Second Amendment could literally hinge upon the outcome of this election, and regardless of how true that may or may not be, it seems like a lot of folks are going out, and of course they're going out and buying guns at an increasing pace. And a lot of those guns tend to be black rifles. So what's your take on all that?
Well, I think this election, you said how important it is. I think this is one of the most important elections in our lifetime. We're in our early 30s, and I think that this particular one, even more so than the previous two, is incredibly important, and it'll be very, very interesting to see what shakes out in November. But I think, you mentioned guns being bought. Well, we also have ammunition being bought at an alarming rate, and it doesn't quite seem like it was in the end of 2012. It doesn't seem that same way. It doesn't feel the same way because we haven't had a tragedy happen.
Sure.
Some jackass has not made a mistake recently.
Sure.
That has affected the political climate, but it's certainly a really, really interesting time to see what people are going for, where what they're buying versus what was being bought years ago. Like back in 2013, early 2013, you couldn't buy .22 ammo. What happened yesterday? We were out around here and we grabbed a whole bunch.
Sure, it does happen. So
it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that it's a really interesting demographic when you start looking at, not necessarily the types of guns that are being bought, but who's buying them.
That's a great point.
Yeah, when you go around to the various, especially big box stores, like if you go to, I hate to say this, but like you go to Walmart, or if you go to Dick's Sporting Goods or Gander Mountain or any of the big box stores, Academy, all of them are excellent stores. I've done business with them on many of them on a regular basis, and they're good people, and can't necessarily say the same for some of the people that work there on a regular basis. Some of them may not be quite as knowledgeable, but if you're looking at price structure and selection, sometimes those places have pretty good selection. So what's interesting is you go into one of those shops and you're looking around, like sometimes I might go in there and I'm looking around at ammo, or maybe I need some powder or whatever, primers, and I'm just looking at something. I very rarely buy guns at a big box sporting goods store. However, what's interesting is to see who is buying guns, and you look and it's some single mom with her 3 kids with her, and she's looking for a gun to protect herself because she's afraid that she might not be able to own guns if Hillary gets elected. She's worried that these Democrats are going after guns and that they are really hardlining on the gun issue, and that gun ownership could be a lot harder under a Clinton presidency. Now, that's certainly a safe assessment, but then also folks that maybe never have thought about owning a gun at all are buying guns. We've got a lot of first-time gun buyers and things like that. So where does that really start to correlate versus the whole fear buying thing? Well, I think that a lot of folks automatically, when they think, okay, well, what gun should I buy? Because of all of the press that the media puts forth about black rifles, and they make a big deal about black rifles, and they call them assault weapons, and they demonize them and give them all of these improper names, people are automatically going to go after like the type of guns that are on this table. I mean, we're seeing a lot of AR sales, AK sales, auto-loading shotguns. You're seeing a lot of those going out the door, stuff like a Glock 19. I mean, we laid out various guns here to give you an example of the type of stuff that people are really snatching up.
I think it's also interesting, my parents, not big into guns. They don't subscribe to the same type of lifestyle that I do. They just don't. They come from a different era where it was okay to maybe leave your car unlocked overnight, that sort of thing. And when they both came to me and said, "Hey, I think we want to get some guns," I knew things had changed.
Sure.
That's a very important thing. I think beyond the political climate, I think people are sensing, they're feeling that the culture within the United States is changing.
Yeah,
We're fighting a culture war. The quote unquote progressives, aka give me free stuff, that type of person is kind of overwhelming the people that want to be self-reliant and have their own responsibility for things. And I think that the people that are on the more conservative side of things tend to agree that, maybe I didn't think I needed a gun or wanted a gun before, and maybe now I do. And, speaking on handguns specifically, I've talked to plenty of people that own shops, work at shops, whatever, and concealed carry handguns are the #1 seller right now. And it has been for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, people want to defend themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing, because if that's how they start out in firearms, fantastic. If that is where they stay, cool. The more people we have that appreciate and understand the reason we have a Second Amendment, the better off we're going to be in the long run.
I agree wholeheartedly, John. And I tell you, another part of that vein, we are going to be making a separate gun gripe, kind of talking about gun culture in the U.S. We're not going to hit on that in this particular video. But one thing we will hit on in this video, because I think it's important and it really shares in the context of this gripe, is the fact that there are probably more first-time female gun owners out there than there ever have been in U.S. history.
By far. By far.
Yeah, ladies are wanting to protect themselves, and why shouldn't they? I mean, there's a lot of ladies who are head of households. They're the breadwinners of their household. You got a lot of single mothers who are trying to raise kids. They want to defend their household, defend themselves. A lot of women, besides all of that, let's just say mom and dad. Dad comes home with a brand new 1911. Mom's going, well, dang, I want a gun too. That she sees the security that firearm provides, and that she feels safer in the household knowing that there's guns in the house. And then they go, oh, well, tell you what, I want a gun now. And then it becomes like a family thing. You go to the shop and you pick out a starter rifle for your young son or daughter to shoot.
Sure.
Maybe your wife picks out a revolver or a concealed carry handgun to carry with her when she goes to the store and things like that, so she can be prepared for anything. And then, of course, Dad, maybe he's a hunter, maybe he owns a lot of guns, maybe he had the foresight to realize, wow, maybe things politically could cause some change in the gun culture and the change in our ability to own certain guns. Hey, I had a couple of revolvers that were passed down from Grandpa. Maybe I should buy a Glock and a few mags and maybe get some training and go to the range and get a little bit of shooting time in to get a little bit more proficient with firearms. And I think that's what we're seeing. Also, training is increasing. A lot of folks are seeking out more training.
And that's a fantastic point. I love seeing more people being active and not just buying a gun and putting it in a drawer or putting it in the closet or whatever.
Sure.
I love seeing people that want to get out and defend themselves and train and understand how to employ that thing should they need to. I think that's fantastic. And you touched on something that I think is interesting as well, is people kind of changing their mindset. They may have been a hunter for a long time. Maybe a guy only had a bolt action for 20 years or whatever it is, and suddenly they go, I think I might want to get one of those AR-15s. And,
I agree.
I when I was working in a gun shop, I sold plenty of guys guns like that. They said, what's that all about? Can you explain it to me? And once they hear, how much fun they are and how useful they can be if the need should arise, I think it's a good thing, seeing this shift. And it's interesting that these two concepts of gun culture and panic buying kind of tie together, because, the more the panic buying increases, the more people end up getting educated through that.
Yeah, and the more people end up becoming gun owners, because you've got all these folks that are buying guns that maybe never thought about buying a gun, especially a gun like this before, and then they come home with it, and then they tell their buddies about it, and their friends are going, well, what made you do that? Well, why? Maybe there's a disconnect there where people don't think, well, maybe I should own a gun, or maybe they just could never really figure out why they needed it. So why does that correlate to fear buying? Why does that come back to fear buying? Because I think that what it comes down to is the way Americans typically are. If you tell an American citizen they can't have something, what do?
They want
it. All that much more. Here's a really good example. Maybe a good example, maybe not a good example, but let's say that there was some law that might get passed. Let's just say we didn't know if it was going to get passed, but that there was a considerable threat that a law could get passed that you could not own a vehicle that traveled over 60 miles per hour.
Wow.
Topped out. Okay, so that car can't travel over 60 miles an hour after such and such date. let's just say, all right, January 1st, 2017, you will no longer be able to buy a car that travels over 60 miles an hour. What would everybody do?
My honest opinion on that, everybody would modify their cars.
Everyone would modify their cars.
What it would do, and what it would do in the terms of anything like that, is it create a bunch of criminals. And it'd make all these law-abiding citizens criminals, and then once everybody's a criminal, suddenly the rule of law breaks down, and you've got this big extrapolation. And people want things they cannot have.
I agree, but in the vein of the argument, the answer would be, well, they're going to go out and buy a car that travels over 60 miles an hour because they want that car. So it's very much like that. If somebody, let's just say somebody drives to work every day and say that they work close to where they live and they don't really have to take a lot of long trips. All right, hypothetically, let's say a person doesn't need to travel over 60 miles per hour, okay? They live in the inner city. Maybe they can't even get their car above 45 because they work 5 blocks from their house. But they heard someone say, man, did you hear that January 1st, 2017, they're going to outlaw cars that go over 60 miles an hour? They'd be like, the sky's falling! And they'd have to go buy a car that goes over 60 miles an hour, even though there's no real reason. I'm getting around to a point I'm making.
Sure.
Is that all it takes is for some person to go, oh, well, man, old Hillary, when she gets in office, she's going to take these things and she's going to do all this and she's going to do all that. Well, we know that what her track record is on the Second Amendment.
Well, I mean, she's come out and said she's coming after
She's come out and said it. Okay, that's fine. It creates an atmosphere of fear. It's no different than what terrorists do when they put out some bulletin that says, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. It's all hearsay and it's all hocus pocus until it actually happens. But what does it do? It puts that thought in your mind. It makes you think about that. It makes you think about what's going on. So I'm not trying to say we shouldn't be worried about it or anything like that, but all I'm saying is it creates an atmosphere of fear, and that fear spreads, and people go, oh, well, did you hear old Bob bought an AR the other day? Sure. Wow, I thought he only had a hunting rifle.
Exactly.
Wow, for years, I mean, he's got a few big bore hunting rifles, but, I didn't know he owned an AR. Yeah, he did. Well, dang, maybe I should buy an AR too. And that's...
It just keeps on going from there, and, it spreads, and hey, so-and-so got a rifle. Oh, maybe I should get one. Maybe I should get another one. It goes from there. And I think the other interesting thing is watching how people end up buying and what they buy and how they get educated through all of this.
Sure.
All of the ammunition purchases and things like that, because I know we didn't touch about that as much, but ammo prices tend to get, they tend to roller coaster because of all this panic buying. Availability, shifts around all the time. And I think watching the gun culture and people that are not gun people already react to that, it's just a really interesting time for us to be kind of watching things happen. And, I'm guilty of it myself. I'll go around and I'll buy up 22 ammo. I'll buy up 9mm ammo. I don't really need to at this point with 9, but I get sucked into it.
You're worried you may not be able to get it.
Well, here's the point. We were talking about this in the car. So my livelihood is videos with firearms. That's how I make a living, right? So if I don't have ammunition, much like if you don't have fuel for your vehicle, I can't get where I need to go.
Not getting what you need to get
so
done.
I actually, if I have concerns that it won't be available, well, then I need to get a whole bunch.
Sure.
It's just the long and short of it. And I think that a lot of people feel the same way, regardless of whether
there is a factor of that. And I believe that the whole panic buying and fear buying does kind of factor into that, particular arena quite well. I mean, when you look at a guy who goes to a sporting goods store and there's 30 bricks of 22 on the wall, and he goes over to the sales associate and says, how many bricks will you sell me? And then they go, well, there's no limit. And then that person buys all 30. Well, then the next person comes in, well, there's no 22 ammo at my store. But what they don't realize is that if they would have been there 5 minutes before, there was a whole shelf of 22 ammo. So you're seeing that with 22. But another thing that I want to hit on too, with all the fear and panic buying that's going on, it's not like there's this humongous run right now. I mean, at the time we're making this video, I think today's date's October 5th or 6th?
It's the 5th.
Today's the 5th, okay? So today's October 5th, and we're like a month or so and some change before, elections and everything like that. And right now, it's not that crazy yet. Now, is that to say that we're going to see this crazy run on black rifles, even more than has already been done after the elections. Maybe the outcome of the elections will drive that, and maybe the people that are buying them now are just buying them as a what if. Maybe it's the pre-fear buying is what we're looking at now.
Sure,
I mean, that's
the preface to the panic.
But the point I'm making there is that there are black rifles on the wall at many gun stores. We went down to a local gun shop here. It was kind of a mom and pop shop yesterday, and the entire wall full of plenty of black rifles, all you could possibly want. Good selection, good prices. Prices weren't silly yet. There's plenty of ammunition. There's plenty of magazines. So I don't really think we're seeing this terrible run on it. I think it's at this point, it's more in people's minds. Like, it's really in the back of their mind. They're thinking, okay, I don't want to be told I can't have it, and I want it. And there's a lot of people kind of, going towards that.
Well, we had that massive, absolutely massive panic in early 2013, late 2012. And I think a lot of people still remember that. So they don't have the same reaction. If you do the same thing over and over and over, you'll get used to it, right?
Sure.
So if we experience panic buying on a 4-year cycle, on election cycle,
sure,
we're going to get used to it, and it may not happen the same way anymore.
Yeah, and maybe people, and here's another thing to think about too, is that maybe back during the whole Sandy Hook scare and all the buying that people were doing on black rifles and things, maybe they got their fill and they bought all the rifles they wanted. And maybe now there's folks that are like, oh, well, I've got mine. I've got one, I've got two, you know what, I don't really need more than that or whatever. And they're just it's not become an issue yet. But you better believe that if it comes to a point where, let's just say, not to make things overly political, but okay, say Hillary gets elected, and with Hillary's track record on gun control, then you might have a recipe for, you know what, even though I don't need another AR, another Glock or whatever, I'm going to buy extras just because I don't want this who to to tell me I can't have it.
Right. She's a horrible human being. We can certainly agree on that.
Yeah.
I think part of it may be, and this is just speculation, of course, we haven't seen a refreshed national gun control effort from Congress. It's all been state level. Massachusetts, California, even in Washington and out west and Jersey and New York. We've seen all that state level stuff, but we haven't seen a national level gun control effort really get pushed like it was before. And I think it's kind of falling into the death by 1,000 paper cuts effort. They're kind of just subverting that, and slowly, state by state by state, we'll start losing our rights. And I think that may have something to do with it.
It's almost like they're waiting for that one opportune moment to really drive the dagger in.
Yeah, like if Hillary Clinton gets elected.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
Very possible. So maybe this video can give you guys a little bit of perspective. I mean, this is our perspective.
Sure.
We kind of work within the industry, and we see things that go on, and we talk to a lot of folks, and I do try to observe things when I'm out and about at gun shops and things, and I try to get data in from the guys up at Moss anytime I'm talking to them. So like if Ray and Ryan are dealing with a certain type of sale that they're doing on a regular basis, I try to get data on that from them so I can get an idea of the kind of sales that they're making. And really right now, the biggest sellers in terms of firearms in general, like we mentioned before, but I'll go over it again, pretty much concealed carry handguns. Glock 19s are selling really well. Smith & Wesson M&P pistols are selling really well.
Yeah.
Smith & Wesson had one heck of a year this year.
Oh, yeah.
And everything like that. ARs are selling like crazy, AKs, a lot of suppressors. With this change in suppressor ownership and the surge for suppressor ownership that's really kind of hit us like it has, a lot of guys are wanting to get into NFA stuff. A lot of folks are buying auto-loading shotguns. Lots of pistol grip Mossberg shotguns and home defense type shotguns. Home defense articles are being sold in tremendous numbers right now. Tons of Maverick 88s and entry-level shotguns and things like that. Lots of, single-stack pistols that are easily concealable. So you can tell by what's being bought where people's minds are at.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if they're not buying, double-barrel shotguns, they're not buying single-shot hunting rifles.
They're certainly not.
They're buying ARs and defensive guns. They're buying shotguns they can defend their homes with. And I think that speaks volumes for not only where the country could be headed, but where people's minds are at. And I think that's very important to, to acknowledge.
Yeah, I think it's this big combination of the culture war, the media pushing certain things, and the United States population going, oh crap, things might be changing. I might have to defend myself.
Exactly. I agree. And then, you know, on the other vein, you also see things that are happening like these riots and all the police that are getting shot at on a regular basis, and police.
Ambushed even.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's not only that, but there are some...
All of those things play into
it, right, exactly. So it's not just the police, it's not just Black Lives Matter, it's not just the populace versus the police, or it's not this stark thing. Because at the end of the day, people are people. And just because some guy has a uniform on, he's still a dude that put that uniform on that morning, and before he put it on, you wouldn't be able to pick him out of a crowd of anybody else. People are people, and we all have to act civil in order for a society to be civilized. And honestly, I feel that, you know, consistent firearms ownership, good training, knowledge of firearms, and a little ounce of courage can go a long way in keeping each other safe, keeping your community safe, and making sure that no matter what bumps might occur in the road in our country, that we can stay on the right path and make sure that we're doing the right thing by each other and looking after each other and looking after our families and our communities. I think that's really what it all comes down to.
There's a very famous saying, an armed society is a polite society.
I agree.
That's 100% true.
I agree. Well, John, I appreciate you joining me on this gun gripe.
I appreciate you having me down.
Absolutely.
It's been a lot of fun hanging with you guys.
Absolutely.
You know that.
Well, guys, we have many more gun gripes on the way. This is just one of them. This is probably one of the longest running series that we have on our YouTube channel that we've been doing now for several years. Make sure you check out John here at the Gun Collective. Go over and check him out. There's a link in the description box below. Great guy. He's got a very entertaining news show. You should totally check it out. Very colorful fella.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, maybe gleaned a little bit of information. We'll see you soon. Thanks.